The grand foyer of Harrington Manor was everything one could expect from a billionaire's estate. Soaring ceilings adorned with crystal chandeliers, marble floors that gleamed under the soft glow of sunlight filtering through tall, arched windows, and walls lined with exquisite art that whispered of wealth and privilege. Yet as I stood there, the beauty of it all felt cold and uninviting. I was Edward Harrington, a successful businessman, but I was also a man who had lost something precious, my sister, Rebecca. The ache of her absence gnawed at me daily, a constant reminder that wealth cannot fill the void of family. I paced the floor, my polished shoes echoing against the marble. My thoughts drifted back to Rebecca, her laughter, her spirit, and the day she vanished without a trace. It had been years, but the pain felt as fresh as if it had happened yesterday. "Why did you have to leave me, Beck?" I murmured to the empty room, my voice barely above a whisper. The silence in response was deafening, amplifying my loneliness. Just then the sound of footsteps interrupted my reverie. I turned to see Clara, the new housekeeper, standing at the entrance, her hands nervously adjusting the apron around her waist. She was a young woman, bright-eyed and resilient, but there was an unmistakable fragility to her demeanor. I noticed the way she clutched a delicate necklace, its pendant swinging gently against her chest. It was a simple piece, but something about it caught my eye, pulling me closer to her. "Good morning, Mr. Harrington," Clara said, her voice soft, yet steady. "Good morning, Clara," I replied, forcing a smile. "Welcome to Harrington Manor. I hope you find it to your liking." She nodded, but I could see the tension in her posture. "Thank you, sir. I'm grateful for the opportunity." As she stepped further into the foyer, I was struck by an overwhelming sensation, a sense of déjà vu that left me momentarily paralyzed. Clara bore an uncanny resemblance to Rebecca. My heart raced as memories flooded back. I shook my head, trying to dispel the notion. It was impossible. Rebecca was gone, and this was just a young woman embarking on a new chapter in her life. Yet, the resemblance was undeniable. "Are you all right, Mr. Harrington?" Clara asked, concern etching her features. Yes, just thinking," I stammered, my mind racing. "You remind me of someone I once knew." Her brow furrowed slightly, and it was as if she sensed the weight of my words. "I'm sorry if I remind you of someone painful." "No, it's not that," I said quickly, desperate to ease her discomfort. "It's just a coincidence." Clara offered a tentative smile, but I could see the flicker of uncertainty in her eyes. "I'll start with my duties then," she said, glancing around the vast space as if searching for a task to anchor her. "Of course," I replied, my voice softer now. "If you need anything, don't hesitate to ask." As she moved away, I couldn't help but watch her. There was something familiar about the way she carried herself, a softness that tugged at my heartstrings. I had to remind myself that she was just a housekeeper, yet the resemblance to Rebecca was haunting. "Edward," called out a voice from the hallway, interrupting my thoughts. It was my assistant, Mark, a reminder of the business world that awaited me. I turned away from Clara, my focus shifting to the responsibilities that loomed over me. "We'd have a meeting in an hour," Mark continued, glancing at Clara with curiosity. "Yes, I'll be there," I replied, my mind still lingering on the young woman in the apron. As I headed toward the study, I cast one final glance back at Clara. She was dusting a shelf, her brow furrowed in concentration, the necklace still glinting under the sunlight. Little did I know, the threads of our lives were about to intertwine in ways I could never have imagined. The past was lurking just beneath the surface, and soon, secrets would emerge, unraveling everything I thought I knew about family, loss, and the unexpected joys of rediscovery. The sun hung low in the sky, casting a warm golden hue over the meticulously manicured gardens of the Harrington Mansion. I had spent the morning dusting and organizing the grand library, but I could feel Edward's gaze on me, heavy and penetrating. It was disconcerting, to say the least. I had always been told that I resembled my mother, But the way Edward looked at me made me wonder if I bore some resemblance to someone else, someone he had lost. I could sense the weight of his memories swirling in the air, and I couldn't help but feel like an intruder in his world. "Just focus on the tasks at hand, Clara," I muttered to myself, trying to shake off the feeling. I wiped my brow with the back of my hand and turned my attention back to the vase of fresh flowers that adorned the mantelpiece, arranging them just so to distract myself from the intensity of his stare. As I made my way outside to the garden, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched. I took a deep breath, inhaling the scent of blooming roses and freshly cut grass. The tranquility of the garden was a sharp contrast to the chaos of my thoughts. I knelt beside a bed of daisies, my fingers brushing against the soft petals as I lost myself in the moment. But then, as if the universe had conspired against me, I felt something slip from my neck. I looked down in horror as the delicate chain of my mother's necklace fell from my grasp, bouncing off the ground before settling in the dirt. The pendant, a small locket shaped like a heart, was precious to me, a token of my mother's love and resilience. "Oh no," I exclaimed, scrambling to retrieve it. As I dug into the soil, I felt a presence behind me. I froze, my heart racing. "Clara, is everything all right?" Edward's voice broke through the quiet, laced with concern. I turned to face him, my cheeks flushing at the sudden proximity. I dropped my necklace. Brushing the dirt from my hands. It belonged to my mother. His eyes widened as he caught sight of the locket, his expression shifting from concern to something more intense. "That pendant, it looks familiar." I felt a chill run down my spine. "What do you mean?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. He took a step closer, his gaze locked on the locket as if it were a portal to another time. "I gave a similar pendant to my sister Rebecca, before she disappeared." The air thickened with unspoken words, and I could see the pain etched across his face. "Rebecca? You mean she had one like this?" "Yes, it was a heart-shaped locket," he murmured, his voice heavy with memories. "I can't believe it." Sensing his discomfort, I took a hesitant step back. "I'm sorry, I didn't mean to bring up painful memories." "No, it's just—" He hesitated, as if struggling to find the right words. "It's been years, and I thought I'd left those memories behind." "I understand," I replied, my heart racing. "This necklace is all I have left of my mother." As I spoke, I could see the storm of emotions swirling within him, grief, disbelief, and something else that I couldn't quite place. "Clara, he started, but the words faltered in his throat. Before I could respond, I felt a wave of panic wash over me. I couldn't shake the feeling that I was somehow tied to this man's past. "I should go," I said abruptly, my voice trembling slightly. I turned on my heel, leaving Edward standing there, a whirlwind of emotions on his face. As I hurried back into the mansion, my mind raced with questions. Who was Edward Harrington to me, really? Why did I feel this inexplicable connection? I could feel his gaze still lingering on my back, and I fought to suppress the urge to look back. I had stumbled into a world of secrets, and I couldn't shake the sense that my own past was intricately woven into the fabric of his. The afternoon light filtered through the tall windows of the mansion, casting a warm glow on the polished marble floor. I stood in the spacious kitchen, my hands trembling slightly as I dried a set of dishes. My thoughts flickered back to the necklace that clung to my neck, a delicate family heirloom that had belonged to my mother. It felt like a lifeline, a connection to my past, but the weight of it also pressed heavily on my chest. I had always known that my resemblance to someone from a different world would draw attention, but standing in the Harrington home, I felt that attention like a spotlight. Edward Harrington had been watching me since I arrived, I could sense his gaze lingering longer than it should have, and it made my stomach twist with anxiety. The thought of facing him again sent chills down my spine. Then, the door swung open, and Edward stepped into the room. His presence was commanding, and despite my efforts to maintain my composure, I felt that familiar flutter of nerves. He approached me, his expression unreadable. "Clara," he began, his voice steady but colored with an undertone of something deeper. "About that necklace, I need to know where you got it." I straightened my back, setting the dish towel aside. "It belonged to my mother. She passed it down to me." "Why do you ask?" He stepped closer, and I could see the flicker of emotions in his eyes. Curiosity, pain, and something that resembled hope. It looked strikingly similar to one I gave to my sister, Rebecca, before she vanished. It's hard to ignore the resemblance. I swallowed hard, the weight of his words sinking in. I don't know what to say. My mother never spoke of her family. All I know is that she loved this necklace and wore it proudly until she died. Edward studied me for a moment, his brow furrowed in thought. "Do you have any other family? Any siblings?" I shook my head, feeling a pang of loss for the family I never had. "It was just me and my mother. We struggled, but we were a team. I've never met anyone else. No siblings, no relatives, just us." He nodded, digesting my words, and a silence settled between us. It was thick with unspoken questions and unresolved feelings. Just then, the doorbell rang, cutting through the tension. "I'll get it," he said, his voice a little too brisk. I watched him leave the kitchen, my heart racing. Was it possible that my existence could be intertwined with this family? My thoughts spiraled with confusion and curiosity as I resumed my chores, the clattering of dishes masking my inner turmoil. Moments later, I heard raised voices. I strained to listen, catching snippets of a heated argument. Edward's tone was sharp, filled with frustration. "You can't just show up here, Mother. Not after everything. Edward, I'm still your mother. I deserve to know what's going on in this house." Margaret's voice was equally intense, laced with a mix of anger and desperation. I felt a chill creep up my spine, my instincts urging me to stay out of it. But something compelled me to inch closer to the doorway, straining to hear more. "You abandoned us," Edward shot back. "You chose your secrets over your family, and now you want to waltz back in as if nothing happened? Don't you dare put this on me. Your sister—" But the rest of her words were drowned out by the pounding of my heart. The mention of his sister sent my mind racing. What had happened to Rebecca? Could it be that the secrets of this family were entwined with my own? I stepped back, retreating into the shadows of the kitchen, feeling a mixture of dread and curiosity wash over me. I had stumbled into a storm of unresolved emotions, and I was caught in the middle. The haunting echoes of their argument lingered in the air, a reminder that the past is never truly buried. It lurks just beneath the surface, waiting for the right moment to emerge. As I resumed my work, my thoughts were a whirlwind of confusion and intrigue. What did it mean to be part of their world? And what secrets would I uncover if I dared to dig deeper? As I moved through the grand halls of the Harrington mansion, I sought solace in my work. Dusting the ornate furniture in the study, I tried to drown out the whirlwind of emotions that swirled around me like a storm. The Harrington family was a tapestry of secrets and turmoil, and I couldn't shake the feeling that I had somehow been woven into their narrative. I paused for a moment, letting my fingers glide across the spine of a leather-bound book, lost in thought. "Clara?" Edward's voice broke through my reverie, drawing my attention. He stood at the doorway, his tall figure framed by the soft light of the setting sun. There was an intensity in his gaze, a flicker of something deeper that I was both drawn to and afraid of. "Mr. Harrington?" I stammered, trying to maintain my composure. "Is there something you need?" He stepped inside, and I could feel the air shift with the weight of unspoken words. I was wondering if you could join me for dinner tonight. I'd like to get to know you better. My heart raced. Dinner with the billionaire? It felt surreal. Of course, sir. Sabi haperpubi, kona krando dinner you're under order. As I prepared for dinner, I couldn't shake the anxiety that twisted in my stomach. I changed into my best dress, a simple yet elegant navy blue that I hoped would convey respect for the occasion. Standing in front of the mirror, I adjusted my hair, catching a glimpse of the necklace around my neck. The pendant dangled just above my heart, a constant reminder of my mother and the life I had left behind. When I entered the dining room, the opulence of the setting took my breath away. The long table was adorned with fine china and crystal goblets that sparkled in the candlelight. Edward stood at the head of the table, his expression a mix of anticipation and uncertainty. "Please take a seat," he said, gesturing toward a chair across from him. I sat down and the moment felt monumental. "Thank you for the invitation. This is beautiful," I remarked, glancing around the room. "Not as beautiful as the company," he replied, a hint of warmth in his tone that made my cheeks flush. As we began our meal, the conversation started off light, with Edward asking about my background. I spoke about my childhood, the struggles my family faced, and how I had come to work for him. I noticed that his eyes darkened slightly whenever I mentioned my mother, and I wondered if he sensed the connection that lingered unspoken between us. "Your mother," he said slowly. "Did she ever mention the Harrington family?" I hesitated, the question hanging heavily in the air. "Not in detail. She always seemed reluctant to talk about her past." "I understand," he replied, his voice barely above a whisper, as if he were revealing a secret. "Some histories are better left buried." The atmosphere shifted, tension threading through the air like electricity. I could see the turmoil in his eyes, a mixture of pain and longing that mirrored my own. "What about you, Mr. Harrington? Do you ever feel the weight of the past? The need to uncover it?" He leaned back in his chair, contemplating my question. "Every day. My sister's disappearance haunts me. It's a shadow that follows me, no matter how much wealth I accumulate." His gaze pierced through me and I felt the gravity of his words. "I can't imagine," I said softly, my heart aching for him. "But maybe sometimes the past finds a way to reveal itself, to bring people together." He studied me intently, as if he were searching for something in my eyes. "You might be right, Clara. It just takes the right moment, or the right person." Our conversation continued, but the weight of our shared histories loomed large. I felt a flicker of hope in the air, a connection that was both thrilling and terrifying. As dessert was served, I caught Edward's gaze lingering on me, and an unspoken understanding hung between us, binding us tighter with each passing moment. But just as I was beginning to feel a sense of belonging, a knock at the door interrupted our evening. The sound echoed through the mansion, a reminder of the world outside that was waiting for us to acknowledge it. Edward's expression changed, a flicker of apprehension crossing his face. I held my breath, sensing that whatever was about to happen would alter the course of our evening, and perhaps our lives forever. The dining room was elegantly set, the flickering candlelight casting a warm glow over the polished mahogany table. I felt a mix of excitement and apprehension as I sat across from Edward Harrington, the billionaire whose life seemed as lavish as it was lonely. The aroma of roasted chicken wafted through the air, but my mind was elsewhere, caught between the allure of this man and the weight of my own past. "Tell me about your dreams, Clara," Edward said, his deep voice breaking the silence. His gaze was intense, searching, as if he were peeling back layers of my soul. I hesitated, the words caught in my throat. "Well, I've always wanted to become a writer," I finally admitted, my voice barely above a whisper. "I love weaving stories, creating worlds that can take people away from their troubles." Edward leaned forward, Intrigued. What kind of stories? I took a breath, feeling a rush of confidence. I'm drawn to tales of mystery and family bonds, the kind that explores the depths of human emotions. Sometimes I think I write to understand my own life better. He nodded, his expression softening. Family bonds can be complicated. There was an unspoken understanding between us, a connection that felt both thrilling and terrifying. I sensed the shadows of his past lurking behind his eyes, just as my own shadows danced in the corners of my mind. As we delved deeper into our conversation, a sudden crash of thunder echoed outside, startling me. The lights flickered and then went out, plunging us into darkness. "Great," Edward muttered, running a hand through his hair. "Just what we need. A storm." I laughed nervously. "At least it adds a bit of drama, right?" "True," he replied, a hint of a smile playing on his lips. "Let's find some candles. Follow me." We moved to the living room, the atmosphere thick with an unexpected intimacy. As Edward lit a few candles, their soft glow illuminated his strong features, casting shadows that seemed to dance on the walls. "Clara," he began, turning to face me, his expression serious. "I've been thinking a lot about my sister, Rebecca. She disappeared years ago, and it's haunted me ever since." I felt a tug at my heart. "I can't imagine how painful that must be." He shook his head, his voice low and raw. "It was like losing a part of myself. I still have questions that remain unanswered." I swallowed hard, caught between the urge to comfort him and the fear of crossing a line. "Sometimes, sharing the pain can lighten the burden," I suggested gently. He sighed, looking away for a moment as if gathering his thoughts. I never got to say goodbye. I never got to understand why she left. "Maybe she didn't leave by choice," I replied hesitantly, my own experiences bubbling to the surface. Sometimes circumstances force people to make decisions that seem incomprehensible. Edward met my gaze, vulnerability etched on his face. "Did you ever lose someone close to you?" I hesitated, before nodding. "My mother. She passed away when I was young. I've spent my life trying to piece together who she was, what she wanted for me. The air felt charged between us, our shared pain creating an invisible bond." "What was she like?" Edward asked softly. I smiled wistfully. "She was a dreamer, always telling me stories about far-off places and the magic of words. I think I inherited that from her. Maybe that's why you and I connect so deeply," he mused, more to himself than to me. "We both know what it's like to long for something lost." The storm raged outside, but in that moment, it felt like the world had shrunk down to just the two of us. I wanted to tell him more, to reach out and bridge the gap between our lives, but the weight of our shared histories held me back. "Edward," I began, my voice trembling slightly. "I think we both have secrets that could change everything." He searched my eyes, the flickering candlelight, revealing a storm of emotions swirling within him. "Maybe it's time we start to uncover those secrets together." In that moment, I felt a flicker of hope. A hope that maybe the past wouldn't just haunt us, but could lead us toward something new, something healing. As I dusted the ornate shelves in Edward Harrington's mansion, a glimmer caught my eye. It was a leather-bound journal, wedged behind a row of antique books. My curiosity piqued. I carefully pulled it out, the spine cracking slightly as I opened it. The pages were yellowed with age, and the handwriting was elegant, almost delicate. As I began to read, my heart raced with each line, as if the words were calling out to me. The entries told the story of a young woman named Rebecca, and the more I read, the more I felt an unexplainable connection to her life. "Clara, are you in there?" Edward's voice echoed from the hallway, interrupting my thoughts. I quickly closed the journal and placed it back on the shelf, my pulse quickening as I wondered if I should share my discovery with him. "Just a moment," I called back, trying to suppress the whirlwind of emotions that surged within me. I walked out to meet him, my heart pounding with anticipation. Edward stood there, his expression a mix of concern and curiosity. "I was just looking for you. I wanted to talk," he said, his voice steady but his eyes betraying a storm of emotions beneath the calm surface. "Of course. What's on your mind?" I asked, trying to maintain my composure. "I've been thinking about the necklace," he began, his gaze intense. "I can't shake the feeling that there's something more to it. To you. I need to know who you really are." The air between us thickened with tension and I could feel the weight of my own secrets pressing down. "I'm just Clara, your housekeeper," I replied, but my voice lacked conviction. "No, it's not that simple," he insisted, stepping closer. "You look so much like Rebecca, I can't help but wonder if there's a connection." "Edward, I hesitated. My mind raced back to the journal. Should I tell him? "Please," he urged softly. "I need the truth." I took a deep breath, feeling the weight of the moment. "I found something today. A journal belonging to Rebecca. It was hidden behind some books." His eyes widened, a flicker of hope igniting within them. "What did it say?" "I didn't read much, but there were entries about her life, her struggles, and they felt so familiar." I paused, gauging his reaction. "It's like she was writing about me. Or rather, I was reading about myself in her words." Edward took a step back, processing what I had just revealed. "What do you mean?" "I don't know how to explain it," I admitted. "But it's as if her experiences mirror my own. It's unsettling." He ran a hand through his hair, frustration evident on his face. "This can't be a coincidence. You have to show me the journal." I nodded, my heart racing as we walked back to the shelf. I retrieved the journal and handed it to him, feeling a mix of fear and exhilaration. As he flipped through the pages, I watched his expression shift from intrigue to shock. This entry," he murmured, pausing on a page. "It talks about family secrets, about a daughter. I need to know, Clara, could you be—" "I don't know," I interrupted, my voice trembling. "I've always been told my family history was complicated. My mother never shared much about my father. Maybe there's a link." The silence that followed was heavy. Edward looked at me, his eyes searching for answers that neither of us could provide. "If you're Rebecca's daughter, if you truly are family, we need to find out," he said, his voice steady now, filled with determination. "I want to know," I confessed, my heart aching with the possibility. "I want to understand who I am." As we stood there, the tension between us began to dissolve, replaced by a shared sense of purpose. "Then let's figure this out together," he said softly, his hand brushing against mine, igniting a warmth that was both comforting and exhilarating. In that moment, I felt the walls I had built around my heart begin to crumble. Perhaps this was not just about uncovering the past. It was about finding a new future, one where family ties could be rekindled, one where love and forgiveness could flourish once more. As we prepared to confront the truth, I couldn't shake the feeling that this was just the beginning of a journey that would forever change our lives.